Hi, this is Theresa with One Inspiring Woman, and today we're talking about the astrology for October 2022. Hi, my name is Theresa with One Inspiring Woman. I'm an intuitive psychic medium here in the Sugar Land area. That's just outside of Houston. I work with my angels and guides to assist my clients in many areas of their lives, to bring them special messages from loved ones who have passed, to dialogue with their angels for guidance into their own situation, or to assist them with their own psychic abilities. If you like my content, please make sure to subscribe, like, and comment. That's right. I will tell you, for a long time, probably 3 to 6 months or so, I have just kind of felt like the end of 2022 has a lot of changes, and that really starts today. So it's kind of like that interesting energy. I've just kind of felt it coming along, but I also feel like it's not just like individual people. It's not just like there are going to be a lot of individual people making changes. So I get all of that, and you could be one of them. The next part is I also get that this is kind of like a world shift of change. A lot of things are shifting and changing. And I know part of this comes in because the United States is in its Pluto return. And if you don't understand, I will literally link that beneath so you can kind of rehear that one. Or if you've never heard it, you can hear it for the first time. So this is kind of that interesting energy of kind of the changes that are coming. And a lot of people are talking about like this wokeness, and it's not really the greatest definition for it, but that's kind of somewhat's happening. People are waking up to changes, and they're waking up to things that they normally would kind of like put by the wayside, and I don't really care about that, or that's not important to me. And kind of understanding, for a long time I see people kind of like they're only looking at the world from their one perspective, and their one perspective is kind of like we're only here on earth, and this is kind of like these blinders coming on, and we're not part of this greater galaxy or universe and changing energy or whatever else. And I think that's kind of some changes that are coming. I also kind of hear in my angel's ear kind of like telling me that there are some changes coming, and I also get EMFs, kind of like electrical magnetic energy will be shifting and changing, not only the end of this year, at the end of 2022, October, November, December, but also into 2023. And so these are some big changes that are coming, some big changes that are coming, kind of things not working the way they have been, cell phones going out, not getting radio waves that we're supposed to, and kind of like that magnetic change is coming. And I don't want to say like be fearful of it. I'm just saying like it's coming, so be aware that it's coming. And this energy is kind of like in an interesting way coming so we can make some more changes. A lot of times, like if we're kind of getting that status quo, like we're happy where we're at, we don't want to make changes, we're kind of like, it's all good. But now everything is shifting and everything is changing. And right now we have so many planets in retrograde. It is unbelievable. Like we have like 6. They're changing, they're modifying, and they're allowing us the opportunity to upgrade and make changes as well. So let's talk about the astrology of October 2022. So, and excuse me, I'm doing it old school. I don't have my boards or anything else. I am house sitting for a friend, so I am at their house. So don't tell them I did it. Okay, but here we go. So let's talk about this. October 1st, we have Venus in the sign of Libra in opposition to Jupiter in the sign of Aries. And so what I get with this is kind of like the opposition is all about kind of like merging or blendings of energies. And so Venus is our planet of love and detail orientations and that sort of thing. And that's in the sign of Libra. And Libra is all about balance and harmony and reconciliation. Interesting energy there. And then Jupiter in the sign of Aries. Jupiter is all about expansion and growth, but Jupiter right now is in retrograde, and it's in retrograde in the sign of Aries. And this is a fierce energy, and it's been in this sign for quite a while. So this is kind of like a fierce change, forceful changes, and you have to be courageous and ready to make some of those changes. So kind of like the write-up for this one is there's a possibility of important relationships ending very suddenly. as this aspect cuts off toxic people from other people. It's one of those, a lot of people are realizing like, this isn't a good relationship. This is not where I need to be right now, or this is a very toxic. And I literally just got off the phone with a client who's dealing with something similar to this in her family. And she's like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize like how toxic this was. I didn't realize like how bad this energy really was. So this is kind of like that flipping, changing kind of energy of kind of like, I'm ready to let these toxic people go. But I don't just feel like this is kind of, because Jupiter's so far out there, I don't feel like it's just like a world thing. Venus is much closer, so it's kind of like a combination of the two. People in a global setting, and then people in like our personal bubbles, our friends, our family, our coworkers. That's going to be merging to kind of like make some changes in this, and you're going to see people like cutting off these toxic relationships. On October 2nd, we have Mercury go direct in the sign of Virgo. And so Mercury is still in retrograde. It is in post shadow right now as of October 2nd. So it's kind of like Mercury is the planet of communication and like voicing things out. But in retrograde, it kind of gives us a chance to kind of rethink and redo and remodify. So this is a really great time. In the sign of Virgo, it's kind of like it's not really the best energy for it. So it's kind of like you're going to have a lot of people like being chastised, like detail-oriented people like, oh, you did this wrong, or you should have done it this way. You're kind of judging other people and kind of almost like expecting it to be perfect. And so this is going to be a day where you're kind of like, okay. So moving forward for the second time, Mercury in Virgo is all about like the awaiting projects, kind of like now that we're kind of like out of full retrograde and kind of into post shadow, kind of like what are the projects we really want to move forward at this time. It's kind of like we're almost ready to get that green light to go. It is still in retrograde, post shadow for a little bit longer. So we're kind of like, we're right at the starting line ready to go. So we're almost there. And it's important to choose your projects wisely and your friends more carefully. So anything that's kind of like allowing this energy to kind of come in and make those changes, make sure that you're allowing that to change, and don't go back like, oh, this is just more comfortable. This is what we're talking about. It's kind of like making these big changes. Next, we have Vesta, is one of our asteroids going direct in the sign of Aquarius. And Aquarius energy is all about revolution and intensity and kind of like intelligence, kind of like allowing that. And this is really allowing us to kind of finally move forward and helping others. Vesta is all about like that inner work of kind of helping others, focusing on our own inner growth. But it's one of those, not just focusing on that inner growth so much, but it's also kind of like, how do we expand this to the outside world? How are we going to kind of like push our ideas forward? How are we going to make changes? How are we going to make upgrades? And this is a great time to kind of really think about like, where do I want to go with this? Where do I want to move in this energy? This is going to be a great time. So next we are going to go into October 6th, and this is Mercury in the sign of Virgo trining Pluto in Capricorn. So a trine is kind of like allowing both of them to kind of flow and find a new agreements and new changes. And so Mercury, like I said earlier, is all about communication, and in, like I said, in the sign of Virgo, it's not really easy. It's kind of like pushing that kind of like more negative talk, like you have to do it my way, or you have to do it it's my way or the highway. It's kind of making those changes. And then Pluto is really kind of that the underworld, kind of like those issues that we've really kind of wanted to push down and we really don't want to focus, are going to be popping up, because Capricorn is all about this mastering energy. It's all about this ambitious energy and kind of like bringing that up from beneath us, kind of like where we want to go in this. And so kind of this is a day of innovation and kind of making this a powerful aspect to allowing us to come up to make new solutions. Hopefully not 100% perfect, because sometimes like the 100% perfect ones don't work either. So it's kind of like a great way to kind of come up with some new solutions that may work better than what we've got now, and then allow for it to change and modify again. And this could be some very complex issues that are coming up, some kind of like this powerful energy changing. Next, on October 8th, we have Pluto goes direct in the sign of Capricorn. And so, like I said, Pluto has been in retrograde for a while. We do have our US Pluto in return right now. And now that it's out of retrograde, it's going to really be pushing it. This is where I feel like a lot of the changes are coming in. Capricorn energy, like I said, is all about ambition and mastering things and being masterful, kind of like pushing that master energy, kind of like, I'm going to be more dominant. I'm going to be pushing this. And it also has a practicality to it. This is a time to really confront the darkness and bringing truth out. This is where I kind of get is kind of like pushing that, where's the truth in what's being said? Where's the truth in what's coming out? And it can only come forward if we're not holding on to the past. If we're holding on to that past too tightly, it's like it can't change. So we have to be able to allow this energy to flow and kind of allow it to make its changes. It's almost like if you put a seed in the ground, you can't go check it every 5 minutes because it's not going to get a chance to grow. So now that we're allowing it to grow on its own, it's going to be becoming very strong and very forceful in its own energy. Next, we're going to move to October 9th, and we have a full moon in the sign of Aries. And so our full moon is all about releasing and letting things go, kind of like what we've been holding on to, kind of releasing it and letting it go. And Aries energy is like that forceful, courageous energy, kind of like what have we not been able to like let go. We've been like too fearful to kind of let go of something. And so kind of like now it's that opportunity. What are we ready to move into? What are we ready to change or modify in this energy? And like I said, full moons are all about releasing and letting go. And so that is going to be a very powerful energy for us to work through the next few days after that time frame of kind of like empowering new beginnings, because we've let go of the past. So that kind of like opens up the door to new beginnings. It increases our desire to kind of like be independent and have new experiences, and pushing past the limitations that we've allowed to control us in the past. And now we're ready to move forward. Now we're ready to go. Next, on October 10th, we have our 1010 portal. And that is a very powerful portal that we are working through right now. So one of the things kind of important to kind of keep in mind with this is our 1010 portal is all about kind of like almost that rebirth. What are we willing to change? And like I said, things that have kept us in the past in this energy, maybe it's things we learned as a child and things that we grew up in or whatever else, and we've been holding on to that old energy, but it's now time to let it go and kind of rebirth ourselves and kind of like, I'm ready to kind of live free. I'm ready to have that independence and those new experiences kind of come in at me. So this is really going to make a great energy change for a lot of people. Also on October 10th, we have Mercury going into the sign of Libra. It backed up enough in retrograde to kind of go back into Virgo, and now it's moving forward into Libra. It is still in post-shadow energy, so it's still not a complete go, but it's getting there. And Libra energy is all about that balancing and harmony. So Mercury is back again in Libra, and for the final time this year, communication can take like a much more balanced or more harmonious or even almost diplomatic kind of energy to it, of kind of like being able to work through things and seeing things from all sides. While it is not best to make decisions, it's not the best time to make decisions, we can focus on the upcoming solutions that will work for everybody. So kind of like when Mercury's out of retrograde completely, now we're ready to kind of move into that energy and kind of really open up to what's coming up next for us. Next, on October 11th, we have Mars in the sign of Gemini squaring off Neptune in Pisces. And so the square is all about like this challenge or kind of like crossing purposes. Like you have a different purpose than I do, and we're going to have to kind of work through some of that energy. Okay, now let's move into October 11th. We have Mars in the sign of Gemini squaring off against kind of Neptune in Pisces, and kind of the square is kind of like that challenging energy, kind of like bring it on, buddy, I'm ready for you. So let's see, Mars is all about action and being in action, and then Gemini is all about communication. And sometimes Gemini's communication I can get is kind of like two-sided, or it's kind of like seeing their side and your side. Like, I can see your argument, or I can see your part of this, but I still believe this, or I see this part, and kind of like getting that Gemini dual version. And because it's Gemini is very mental, very communication, and kind of like this different perspective than we normally do. Now, Neptune is kind of like our dream or our fantasy planet, kind of like disrupting our planets, kind of like this dream of kind of like, where is our planetary energy going, kind of what's coming up next. It's kind of that energy of kind of like, what do we do next? And then it's in this, Neptune is in the sign of Pisces, and Pisces is all about kind of like the mystical, the compassion, and the imagination. So kind of like that mystical, magical fantasy world on one side, and kind of like this very action-oriented, communication-bound energy on the other. So this is kind of like, wow, a great day to kind of make some changes and some stuff. And so this is all about like our patience and kind of like bringing that up. And it's all, it's going to be easy for a lot of people because of Mars in there, all about being in action. Things could be very dramatic today, or kind of hit some like really high points, like people being really agitated or aggravated or all that kind of stuff. But just know this is a good day to kind of really make some changes for yourself, and kind of like really think forward. Where do we want to go in this energy? Where do we want to be next in this energy? Then also on October 11th, we also have our Sun in the sign of Libra trine our Saturn in Aquarius, and Saturn is in retrograde right now. So our Sun is all about our ego, and our Libra energy is all about kind of that balance and harmony of stuff. And then we've got this trine, which is kind of like this ease and this flow of our balance and our ego and kind of that sort of thing, kind of balancing against kind of like Saturn, which is kind of this structure energy and kind of making some changes. And that's Saturn, like I said, is still in retrograde in the sign of Aquarius, which is also like revolutionary and kind of making changes and kind of like unpredictability of kind of what's coming up next. This is going to be a day that will kind of like easily manage and kind of overcome some aspects, but I also feel like this is a day to kind of like push your energy forward, and kind of like the things that you've been putting off, or the things that you haven't really wanted to finish, these are the time, that's the day to kind of like, let's move this forward. I also get kind of in this, a lot of people I hear talk about like, your ego is bad and it's horrible and we shouldn't listen to our ego or whatever else. Not necessarily. I would say kind of our ego is our persona of who we present to other people. And yes, there are people that have huge egos, and maybe those need to be dialed down a notch, but not everybody's. And I hear it so many times like, oh, we need to shut off our ego, or we need to turn that off. It's part of who we are. We have to love ourselves, and that's part of that ego, is like, I love me, and I love all the crazy parts of me and my crazy curly hair and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like, that's what we have to love about ourselves. And if we don't love it about ourselves, how can we expect someone else to love it about us as well? So it's kind of like opening up to that energy. Here we go. Next, on October 12th, we have Mercury in the sign of Libra in opposition to Jupiter in Aries. And opposition, remember, is all about that merging or blending of energies. And so Mercury, planet of communication, still in retrograde, still in post shadow, in the sign of Libra, which is balance and harmony, in opposition, flowing or trying to flow with Jupiter in the sign of Aries. Jupiter is in retrograde as well, and it's all about the expansion, but right now it's kind of like contracting, of kind of like, what do we want to change? Let's bring it in, let's change it and modify it, and then we'll send it back out. In the sign of Aries is kind of like this courageous energy. What are you willing to change? And this is going to be kind of an aspect that will bring up a lot of nervous energy for people, because a lot of people do not like change easily, and things will be like changing, boom, like boom, here it happens, and that's where it's like, oh my gosh, I wasn't expecting that. So people, this can make us like nervous when these changes happen. There'll be a number of projects or commitments that we have kind of like pushed our energy into, and we may need to retract a little bit before we go forward again. And it's just kind of retract for the day, kind of like, let me leave it for today, let me set that aside for today, and let me move forward. And it can also be really difficult for us to like delegate tasks. And if you're really not good at delegating tasks, you may feel like you're drowning underwater, because it's one of those, it's when we're trying to control everything, or kind of like, I'm trying to fix this and I'm trying to do this and I'm trying to take care of that, we often feel overwhelmed. And that can also bring out kind of a new aspect for us of kind of like, I'm feeling overwhelmed and maybe taking it out on other people. So that's kind of like interesting energy there. Next, on October 13th, we have Venus in the sign of Libra trining Jupiter in Aquarius. And the trine is all about the ease and the flow of things. And so Venus, our planet of love, Libra, balance and harmony, in flow with Saturn, which is all about our structure. Remember, Saturn's in retrograde right now. I think so is Venus. And it's in the sign of Aquarius. And so Aquarius is kind of that abstract or very intelligent, but also revolutionary, like willing to change and modify energy. This is kind of a really good day for relationships, to kind of bring like a bonding back in, or kind of like coming to the same page, or kind of bringing this energy in together. This is where there may be a lot of people finding their true soulmates, or long-term relationships that are coming in. This is a great day to do something creative. Whatever that is, make sure you're getting out of the box in your creativity. So if that's starting a project you already have, or starting a new project, or kind of starting like kind of moving forward in something else. And this is also a great day to kind of make some changes in long-term investments. Long-term investments for a lot of people kind of really come in with this interesting energy of kind of like making some changes. Like I said, a lot of what we talked about right now in just the beginning half of October 2022 is changing and modifying energy and making upgrades and making changes for what you want in your life and your world. So that's kind of like, wow, here we go. This is going to be a very interesting energy for us. So the first half of October 2022 has some great energy about it. It has some great changes for us coming up. And make sure that you kind of watch the angel card reading, because that's going to give us that deeper insight. This is kind of giving us like the structure of things, and now we're ready to kind of walk into the angel cards. What do the angels have to say about this day? What do the angels want to tell you? Compared to what I've said right now, this is kind of like the structure of that day. And then kind of what's next is moving into that energy of how do we make these changes? How do we make these upgrades? And your angels and guides are going to have special energy about that, of kind of like, here we go into this energy of like what's coming up next for us. How are we going to do this next? And so make sure that you're keeping track of your angel cards for the beginning of October 2022. I know that we'll be talking again soon.